economy. Certainly when I talked to your organization in the not too distant past, I often had less than encouraging news to share about where our state economy is at. The picture is very different now in 2014, and that's very, very good news. When we look at all the indicators, and in the Controller's Office, we're always collecting data and numbers and looking at trends because we're trying to chart and project what the revenues will be for the state based on economic activity. Virtually all the economic indicators for a change are pointed in the right direction. That's very, very good news. Our state's unemployment rate continues to inch down. It's a little bit below 7%, so that's good. Again, we're trending in the right direction. We're seeing strong job creation numbers, especially in the private sector. We've actually now grown back all the jobs that were lost during the depths of the recession, some 480,000 jobs added since 08 and 09, so on a percentage basis we're about at 145% positive right now. We've been ahead of the nation in terms of numbers of jobs being created. All that's very, very good news. The challenge is the obvious one. There's still too many people in the state that are looking for a job opportunity and aren't able to get it. We need to have that unemployment number go down even more. And the level of job creation varies depending on which part of the state you reside. So you follow these trends. I'm not telling you something you don't know already. Which region of the state has had the most robust job regrowth? It's been the 5 boroughs of New York City. They've grown 275,000 jobs. When you look at the numbers beyond New York City, especially north of the downstate suburbs, you see a very different picture. Some of the regions that you're from are back to where they were in 2008. Many of them have not recovered the number of jobs to be back where you were back in 2008. So we still have a challenge on that front, and that's part of the strategy behind the Regional Economic Development Councils to more effectively target state economic development initiatives that match what the needs are in the different regions of our state. In terms of impact of all of this on revenue, certainly sales tax revenue is one of the key revenue sources we look at. It's important to our counties and our local governments as well. 2013 was up over 5% over 2012. That's positive news. Again, we see regional differences. Downstate sales tax collections year over year were up in the range of 6 to 7%. Upstate, the growth was only around 1.7%, so just over the rate of inflation. So again, we still see tremendous regional differences within New York. Statewide home sales are certainly up. Again, we see some regional differences, but statewide up over 12% in 2013 over 2012. We do know that that issue of housing costs, though, especially when in many parts of our state we're seeing sales prices also go up, the issue of housing costs is one that we have to look at. We put out a report in March that looked at that issue of housing affordability in New York State. We found that roughly 3 million New York households pay 30, 40, sometimes 50% of their household budget towards their housing costs. The interesting factor when we look at this report, the challenge of housing affordability is not a region-specific issue. It's not a New York City issue or simply an upstate issue. Because what we did in that report is we looked at what the household income was by region and the housing cost by region, so you're able to accommodate regional differences. It's very interesting for renters, when you look at renters, for counties, the counties with the 2 highest proportion of households with housing costs above the affordability level were Bronx, New York, a very urbanized county at 57.6%. Number 2, right behind the Bronx at 57.5%, was Greene County, a very different mix in terms of a community. So the reality is, if you have, and the affordability level is set at about 30% by the federal government, as I said, many are paying more than 30%. If you have that portion of your income going towards your basic housing costs, it means you're going to be stretched thin for other purchases of goods and services. And that has an impact on spending. And I think that could be part of the drag that we see in terms of our economy, is that we see more and more people having to put their dollars together just to continue to have a roof over their head. We obviously have to all look at that issue on a region-by-region basis and come up with some more creative solutions. Part of why our economy has been in better shape, and certainly our state revenues, Wall Street came back from very, very tough times in 08 and 09. Whether you love Wall Street or you hate Wall Street, the reality is the securities industry is very important to the financial strength of not just New York City, but for the entire state. We estimate that when Wall Street is adding jobs, 2 other jobs are created in other parts of New York City's economy, 1 other job created outside of New York City, but in New York State. And when you look at the revenue contribution of the securities industry to New York State, it accounts for 16% of the total revenues coming to our state. And that percentage is starting to go up again. It used to be 20%, it went down, now it's gone back up again. So we do depend on the health and strength and the sustainable profitability of Wall Street. Certainly we see that profits are back up. They earned about $16.7 billion in 2013. The bonus pool grew to over $26 billion. All of that has positive tax implications for the state. So there's positive news there. We're making headway, certainly, with our economy. Are there still challenges? Absolutely. And one of the challenges has been the problems with the state's fiscal house, where we haven't been in the best order with the state's budget. We have good news on that front as well, because certainly a key underpinning to having economic resurgence across the state is making sure that Albany has its own budget house in order. So as you know, this year we have the fourth year in a row the budget done on time. That's an important statement about tending to the people's business. And we put out our analysis of the state budget, and I find that the state is in the best and the strongest financial position we've been in a number of years. I give credit to the governor and the legislature for putting together more realistic budgets than we've had for a long period of time, and that's very, very good news. It doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We certainly continue to have to make some tough choices. One area of disappointment has been the level of support for local governments. One area is the AIM program, aid and incentives for municipalities, for our cities, for our towns, and our villages. That continues to be basically held flat. When you also factor in other state aid programs and federal aid that over the past few years have either been largely flat or actually gone down, that's been one of the pressures that you have felt at the local level. So certainly as the state continues to be in a stronger budget position and revenues to the state seem to be in a little better shape, over the long haul, I think we need to continue to look at ways that we can strengthen the partnership and the support we provide to local government. As you know, another big area of your priority has been the state assuming Medicaid costs. I know that was a big victory when decisions were made to cap the growth in that area. We continue to see movement towards implementing that. That being said, the local share is still estimated over $8.5 billion. That's still a significant hit on county governments, and I know you continue to advocate for even more relief with regard to the Medicaid program, and others have been joining your call as well. So I think that's another issue that as time moves forward, and depending on the state's budget standing, an area that perhaps we could look again at that formula and see how we could provide more relief.